City Council emergency call meeting for March 25th, 2020 in reference to the expansion of the state of the emergency agreement. And I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mr. Chambers?
Here.
Mr. Mullins?
Here.
Mr. Reynolds?
Here.
Ms. Shinholster?
Here.
Ms. Wallman?
Here.
Dr. Lee?
We do have a quorum present, so at this time I'm going to turn it over to our interim city manager, Mr. Hank Griffin.
Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jordan.
Okay.
What you have in front of you, this supplemental ordinance R-2003-17 has come about as a result of, things continuing to change and seeing what other communities are doing around the state, particularly local governments, what they're doing. We have spent, and I say we, the mayor, Hank, and myself have spent the last 2 days trying to survey what everybody's doing, taking into account some suggestions that were made at the last meeting that we had on Sunday when we had you initially declared and adopted the state of emergency resolution. And we've also had an opportunity to look at the emergency declaration that the county issued earlier today that, as I read it, actually went into effect at 12 noon. And we've been getting some calls about that, some confusion about if your business is located in the city, whether or not that you're governed by that county ordinance or by that county declaration or by what this body adopts. And of course, obviously, it's what this body adopts that is pertinent to anybody living, doing business in the city of Milledgeville, the corporate limits. So what I thought may be best, because I know that we were not able to get this sent out in this form to you until probably about an hour and a half ago. Some of you may not have even had an opportunity to see it. So I want to take as much time as you need. It's pretty comprehensive, so I want to take as much time as you need to go through it in kind of a summary form, and then you ask any questions. If you want time to read and study it further, then simply let us know, and that's what we'll do. This is in 12 sections. Section 1 simply reiterates that the Resolution R 2003-16 was adopted by you on Sunday, declaring a state of emergency. And to that extent, if it remains in place and it's only modified or altered as put forth in this resolution, R 2003-17. And of course, as you can tell, there's a lot of changes, and there's much more detail relative to regulation of businesses and travel and gatherings and so forth. So that simply restates, Section 1 simply reaffirms what you did on Sunday, March 22nd. Section 2 regarding bars, restaurants, and entertainment venues. Basically, we are shutting down any in-dining at any restaurant establishment who sells food or beverages for consumption on the premises. There, of course, would be no in-dining alcohol consumption or such entertainment during the period that this emergency, state of emergency stays in place. It does, of course, allow for delivery, drive-through, takeout, or curbside pickup. We also wanted to address a concern that Councilman Reynolds asked about at our Sunday meeting, basically declaring that these restaurants that are serving, that also have a alcohol license to serve beer and wine by the drink, that they will be able to sell beer and wine in, of course, unopened bottles or cans, as if they were packaged to go. It does not allow for distilled spirits to be sold in that manner from a food establishment. So it is limited to beer and our wine. We've seen that. I know you guys had pointed out a couple of folks that were doing it, and just depending on what your charter provides as to how you can do it, you have to adopt. The City of Atlanta did an administrative order through the mayor that simply directed the police department not to enforce that statute for whatever period, 60 days or whatever that period was. But our charter requires you to take this action by resolution. And then, of course, number 4 simply says that these food establishments, that folks working in those or anybody coming to pick up food must maintain that social distancing of 6 feet and limit as much as possible any contact among individuals. So that's dealing with our bars, our restaurants, and so forth. Section 3 deals with non-essential businesses, and there is a definition of non-essential businesses, but what we've tried to do is, and what it says is that effective at 12 midnight tonight, non-essential businesses are ordered to close and will have to remain closed until this state of emergency is lifted. Okay, non-essential businesses, as you can see, there's a list. This list pretty much tracks the same list that the county adopted or issued in their declaration today, but you can see it's fitness centers, pools, social clubs, amusement facilities, bowling alleys, pool halls, theaters, massage parlors, nail salons, hair salons, barbershops, and such similar facilities. And I'll explain a little bit more about that in just a minute. Then we go to essential businesses that can remain open and do business, and there's quite a laundry list of those. Again, reiterating the social distancing in any business. Business hours in Section 5, business hours for essential businesses are from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. The curfew of 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the evening, 6 o'clock in the morning remains in effect. And this basically, Section 5 establishes the hours for essential businesses, and it basically tracks the curfew, except requiring those businesses to close at 9 o'clock to give folks an opportunity to get home. Now, Section 6 is one that I want you to pay attention to in particular, because this whole concept of essential and non-essential businesses to be able to sit here, and we've gone over a couple of days. We've looked at a list that Athens Clark prepared. We've looked at some other lists. What we would like for you to do is to authorize, first of all, give the city manager the authority to create an essential business list and a non-essential business list, okay, of the types of businesses. He will have that posted on the city's website, on our Facebook page, as well as at City Hall and at the police department. But in addition, we want you to give the interim city manager the authority to change a business's designation based on, in his judgment, what best provides for the health, safety, and welfare of the city's citizens and residents. This will allow him to, in essence, decide what businesses, in addition to what you've put in this resolution, what businesses go in what category. Also, if it's determined that we put a business in an essential category and it really should be in the non-essential, he's going to have, he's going to have the authority to move that business designation. This Section 5 says that as long he can do that, first of all, as long as it's made in a non-discriminatory manner, okay? He's got to have a rational basis for making that decision, and he has to give you, the elected officials, and myself as city attorney, prior written notice that that's what he's about to do, or that's what he's decided. That will give you an opportunity to have whatever input that you think that you need in his decision-making process. So that gives us the flexibility, I think, to, we just simply trying to cover every business and every situation. It seems like a futile exercise, quite honestly. So, Section 7, and this differs, as I read it, from the county's declaration, but Section 7 requires a sheltering in place at your residence. And that covers everyone residing in the city of Milledgeville. There's some cautioning about outside and having to maintain the social distancing. You will see that this is applicable to any groups of any size. But there are also, and we'll look at these definitions, there are also exceptions for what we term essential activities, essential travel, essential governmental functions, or for somebody that is operating an essential business. And the practicality of that is, you know, our residents are still going to be able to go to the grocery store, they're still going to be able to go to the pharmacy, they're going to be able to go basically to any essential business, but you know, it's going to be, and what we're going to expect is it's going to be a go there, do your business, and get back home, okay? And obviously it does not prevent someone from working in those essential businesses too, but it is really trying to emphasize how important it is for folks to be at home, not out and about as much as possible. The Section 8 is simply asking, are you recommending that everyone adhere to what our state and federal officials are telling us related to health and safety during this health emergency. Section 9 really comes from something that Councilman Mullins spoke to at our Sunday meeting, and that is giving certain emergency powers to the interim city manager during this emergency. The ones that we discussed and felt like would be beneficial as things change is to allow him to set hours and procedures of operation for all city departments. That he had the power to alter employee work hours, that he had the authority to set leave policies for city employees, to set hours of operations and procedures for conducting city business when, you know, the business office is open, what those hours are going to be to the public, and things such as that, code enforcement and so forth. And then to authorize him to be able to contract on behalf of the city for emergency services in an amount not to exceed $50,000. Nothing particularly magical about that amount, and that just seemed to be at a level to where, as much as we could try to envision what that might entail, whether it's like the courthouse is going through right now, a disinfecting and deep cleaning. I'm not sure what that actually cost, and whether they're doing it with an outside firm or trying to do it with their own maintenance people. But we thought that number would be a workable number during this emergency. And again, re-emphasizing in that last paragraph that the city manager will promptly communicate to you as elected officials and me as the city attorney when he makes any policy changes or he spends any money pursuant to this section 9. We reiterate in section 10 the effective date, that it is March 26, 2020 at 12 a.m. So it'll be tomorrow. It will be in effect, these restrictions and these requirements, and it tracks the language of the prior resolution that basically keeps all of this in force in effect for 60 days, or upon cessation of these emergency conditions as determined by you. And there's nothing, again, magical about the 60 days. It just keeps us from having to come back to extend it or to make, we may always have to make some other changes, but trying to give enough flexibility to where hopefully the next time you meet, it's to lift the stay of emergency and all restrictions will go away. The definitions are important. I will tell you that they are largely taken from definitions used by Athens Clarke. And we put them in there. We didn't have them in there originally, but we put them in there in hopes that with greater specificity, that we can answer, it'll be easier to answer questions that folks have, and it'll give everybody, hopefully, some peace of mind that the essential things that you are required to do and you have to do you're still going to be able to do them. And so that's how we come up with the essential activities, what constitutes healthcare operations, work on essential infrastructure, and then what constitutes essential governmental functions, as well as what constitutes essential travel. Again, it's basically allowing everyone to do the necessities that they need to do, groceries, drugstore, and any of these essential businesses that we have identified. Item 12, we have included what is called the general penalty that is found in our Code of Ordinances in Section 1-8 of the Code of Ordinances. That will give our law enforcement and our code enforcement the authority to cite those that do not comply with these restrictions and prohibitions and so forth. And that would be a process by which a citation would be issued and a court date in our municipal court would be set for that case to be heard, like any other case, any other code violation, zoning violation type case. It would be the same. It's not a criminal penalty as such. It is a civil penalty issued through our court system. It probably only becomes criminal if you don't do what the judge tells you to do. So that's really what we've got. Hank or myself can answer any questions that you have, or we can give you obviously as much time as you need to get comfortable with this and discuss any changes that you may have.
What kind of penalties are we talking about for monitoring?
Well, the general penalty in the code is for code violations would be up to $1,000.
Up to 1,000.
And $1,000 every day that the violation continues is, under our code, is a separate offense.
Up to
So
1,000.
each day would be up to, and then it would be at the municipal judge at his discretion
Yes.
to set a.
Yes. Now, and we've just briefly talked about this, but I hope that in the spirit of the situation that we find ourselves in, I hope that our code enforcement people and our law enforcement folks are going to work with folks to, and I'm sure they will, work with folks to warn them, to explain to them why it's a violation, and hopefully, they correct that behavior and there's no citation necessary to be issued. And I know Hank has said that it may be important that, all of our law enforcement folks and code enforcement folks have a copy of this ordinance, maybe even multiple copies that they can hand out to somebody and say, can't do this during this state of emergency.
How we plan on getting information to the businesses this quick? You're talking about,
Yeah.
a couple hours.
That was my
Yeah.
question.
Well, I have to let Hank address.
We'll obviously be sharing the information as we would any other information through our social media platforms and website. We would also share it through the Chamber of Commerce, share it through the Downtown Merchants page, And a lot of that goes back to what Jimmy was saying, and that is that code enforcement and patrol officers would have this resolution along with the list that we will put together first thing in the morning, should you pass this resolution, to hand out if they see a business that's open, to hand out to them to let them know what's going on.
The reason I had that question because the first one come to my mind is Huddle House and Waffle House. And you talking about 12 o'clock at night, you talking about then delivering it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But as of the night, they going by this, we adopted it being in
Yeah, and
violation.
obviously that's, anything like that, we would deal with them tomorrow. You know, if a patrol officer went by one of those restaurants and saw people dining in there tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, then they would share with them that once those, they had to close the doors and not let other diners in, and once those folks got done, then everything that they would have to do from there would be curbside pickup or delivery or takeout. So we know it'll, excuse me, we know it'll take a little while to make sure that everybody gets the information out there. And I have already shared with everyone that might be found in this situation that they are to do everything possible to not have to issue a citation.
Okay.
Yeah.
One quick question. I was just trying to go about the essential and non-essential. What would be a car rental place like Enterprise? What would that be?
That would be an essential.
Essential.
I would see that as an essential place because
Yeah.
they might be necessary for emergency transportation.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying. That specific business. That's what I'm curious about.
Now, we only been thinking about this for 2 days, and you
2 days
come up with the
phone
one we
call
hadn't
and
thought
text.
about.
No, Rita came to mind because my car wasn't starting anymore. I thought I had to go get it.
That's exactly why we wanted to give the city manager the flexibility.
To add, subtract.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, because, I'm sure there are others too.
Okay, I have 2 questions.
Uh-oh.
I've been getting a lot of calls from beauticians and barbers.
We all have.
Well, it's got it in here.
Okay, yeah,
Specifically
okay.
names them.
Okay, So by us doing this at 12 o'clock tonight, it's not really giving them enough time. So I know some of them was looking at maybe 12 noon, they said. So if they've got customers and,
If they've got customers that are planning to be there before 12 noon tomorrow,
Okay.
it goes back to the Huddle House, Waffle House question. I mean, we'll give them time
okay,
to do what they need to
good.
do.
And we can make it
I don't
12
wanna-
noon. It doesn't have, I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah, but I think it is up to y'all whether you want that to be a non-essential business, but in my opinion, it needs to be.
Right, right, and I wasn't saying that, I was just
We would definitely give
saying
them the opportunity to
close.
try to get
Okay.
through, maybe
right.
even their clientele for the full day tomorrow.
Good, I got an appointment at 3:30. Get my haircut.
Yeah, no,
Hey, give me a set of clippers.
what I was saying it's up to them is the time.
Right.
Yeah, it's the
If you
time.
want to move it to 12 noon,
You want to move it, right.
we can, not whether it's essential business or not.
Right,
Yeah, so if you wanted to make it effective at noon tomorrow, I mean, we could, for the whole resolution.
yeah,
we
just
could
give them enough time to, I mean,
I mean, it's not gonna require me to get a haircut, but I'll be all right.
No matter where we put the effectiveness,
It's got to start.
effective hour,
right,
as long as we can do something over the next 24 and 48 and even 76,
right.
going into the weekend. Because we're looking at Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And hopefully by that point in time, it's circulated around enough and law enforcement or whomever, code enforcement has had the opportunity to be able to hand some. Because there's people out there that are not gonna look at social media, that are not looking at a newspaper or not Not aware.
I've been getting the phone calls.
Yeah, it didn't take long for
We
the
started
counties.
getting a lot of them when the county issued their resolution.
Yeah.
They were
And
confused.
Y'all saw the
Yeah.
memo that I sent out to
Yeah.
executive staff.
Yeah.
And y'all haven't asked, but I just want to share with you the place in this resolution that is different from the county's, is the shelter in residence.
You want to speak over here?
And that's the area that has the biggest difference between this resolution and what the county passed. And I just want to share with y'all that piece is very important to me. And I'm going to tell you why it is. I told y'all Sunday night about having the teleconference with Dr. Del Rio from Emory on Monday morning. And that was an excellent teleconference. We have just gotten the slides from that teleconference, and I'll be forwarding those to y'all tonight before I leave. But Dr. Del Rio is convinced and convinced me with the data that he shared that if we don't do something between now and April 12th, we will be past the point of no return in our state.
Yep.
And I mean, as I said to y'all in the first email I sent you about this 2 weeks ago, I'm not an alarmist, but I am a planner, and he convinced me with the data that he presented. And I think when you see the data, when I email you those slides tonight, the mayor was on the same teleconference. She may want to share information from the way she saw it. But she and Jimmy probably thought yesterday morning when I got them on the phone, well, Lord have mercy, what got into him? Because I was very adamant about this shelter-in-place piece. I think it is what we have to do in order to have any potential to stop this and it not overrun our medical facilities.
And he actually stated the 24th. So we were a day past the day that he.
Yeah, he said it could start as of yesterday, but he gave it through April 8th. It's kind of a range. I was convinced. Convinced enough that I really thought this was what the governor was going to do Monday afternoon.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was too.
One last question. Walmart and Family Dollars and General Dollars, how would they classify?
They would be essential businesses because they have essential services and essential products for survival. And the way the hours are set up in this resolution for them to be open from 7 to 9 would not affect them based on their current hours.
Gotcha.
Because I have not found anything in the city yet that would be considered an essential business that is open past 9 o'clock except for convenience stores. And convenience stores, if you pass this resolution as it is, convenience stores will have to close at 9 o'clock.
6 to 9.
6 to 9, right. I'm sorry. I said 7 to 9, didn't I? That's actually Walmart's hours right now, 7 to 8. So I actually stood in line to get in a Walmart Sunday morning, not to get out of one like I usually do. So.
Well, if we have any more meetings or necessary for any more meetings, are we going to do them by the telecom? Or are we going?
That would be my plan. I mean, everybody would have the option to decide if they want to come up here or call in. This is an essential government function, so if you are on the way to a meeting, then you're obviously within the law to do that. I would also remind you that on the pandemic operations plan that I gave you on Sunday night, there's a list of essential functions in there. And that's the other list that we would be going off of for this. I'm already looking at doing some things with Public Works and utility maintenance. If y'all approve this resolution, to take it even further, of having shifts work together. As opposed to all of them working together, then you have a shift of 3 people that work together, and that same shift works together. So
Right.
if you do have an issue, then it's hopefully only those 3.
Yeah.
We already have limited the number of people that can be in the building at any given time and those kinds of things. And as I shared with you via email or text or both, I've been sending a lot of those the last 3 days. We actually on Monday morning implemented phase 2 of our operations plan, where the only door open to these 3 city facilities on East Hancock is the business office door, where if we needed to talk to people, we would be able to do that between the glass partitions that are already there. And I've been in my office a good bit, or on the phone a good bit, working through these processes. So, Bo, you'll have to help me here, but I don't see that it's been a major issue. I mean, we've answered people's phone calls, we've answered people's emails. People could still come into the business office and pay their fees. I'm going to have an executive staff meeting tomorrow morning. I canceled the one today, and I had one Monday morning, and I'm going to have one tomorrow morning. I might, after conversing with them, possibly next Monday, implement phase 3 of the emergency operations plan, where we start working people in shifts here just to keep fewer people out of the building. But I talked to Bo this morning, and the 2 people, the 2 people that will, for all intents and purposes, always be in City Hall when it's open would be myself and Bo, the city clerk, so that we could continue to answer phones. And there would be somebody in the business office on any given shift. We would have the outside door of the business office open, so people could come in and get applications if they wanted to start a new service. And of course, they could pay any utility fees or any other charges they needed to online or through the web, or drop them in the Dropbox.
All right.
Just have one question on section 9, just for my own curiosity. When you say set leave policy for city employees, what does that mean?
We have some very specific policies that have already been put out by the federal government in terms of what we can and can't do with family medical leave. You probably have seen those too at your work, and we definitely have to adhere to those. And we would be adhering to those by basically making available 2 weeks of paid leave or paid compensation of some kind, depending on which category, one of 6 categories that the feds have put out, where they meet, or what they meet, whether it be for child care, or whether they feel like they have are sick, whether they get tested and become a confirmed case. There's 6 measurements, and those are the 6 measurements that we would look at. I have struggled. That's the part that I probably have struggled with the most in this whole process. Is making sure what we did there was fair, was equitable, gave people the protection that they needed, but also I continued to be a good steward of the city's finances. And I'll just be perfectly honest with you, I'm not finished with it yet, but what I think will happen, and I would certainly send this to y'all before we shared it with staff. But what I think would happen would be that, and this appears to be what other cities around the state are doing, staff, no matter what kind of leave they have available, would be able to take some type of paid leave, whether they have it in their bank or not, for 2 weeks.
No more questions? Any more discussion? Oh, Ms. Denise, did you?
Pretty much all I had a question about. State is still.
I'll send that to y'all. Ms. Shinholster easily by the end of the day tomorrow. I just want to talk to executive staff again tomorrow before I finish developing that.
'Cause I know whatever you do is going to have an impact on whether things can keep going.
Sure.
But I know
And what I'm looking at right now is really for a term of 30 days.
Mhm.
And then we'll have to determine if we need to make changes from there.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking about with family medical leave, if they are approved for family and medical leave, and, you employees can't just come up with
Right.
their own definition of, I need to be off, it needs to
Exactly.
apply to.
That's where those 6
Like,
bullets that the feds
right.
have put out are going to be
Exactly.
absolutely important
Exactly.
and necessary.
And then at the same time too, there are other things that have to be taken into consideration. But I was just curious to know if it was going, because I know we're leaning towards 2 weeks, and then they'd have to use their leave for the remainder if it's just for child
Sure.
care
Right.
or something like that, depending on the circumstances. So I was just wondering if that's what you were leaning towards, something like
It
that.
is. And even to the point of trying to see if maybe, those folks that are in essential functions like law enforcement and fire department in those areas, once everything flushes out on this, we even see if there's maybe some type of incentive we can give them when it's done.
Yeah. And the other thing too is personal protective gear for the frontline people, law enforcement, fire
Absolutely.
department.
We are.
Where are we with that? I know
We
that doesn't
are,
have anything to do with
that
this.
is coming to us through the county EMA director, who is getting it from GEMA as it comes from FEMA. That's one of the things that I ask each chief each time that I talk with them. And so far they are good with what they have.
Okay.
I know for a fact that to a source other than GEMA, just this morning we got an additional 20,000 pair of gloves.
Okay.
We got, I think it was 35 N95 masks, and we got 17 Tyvek suits should they be needed. So.
Okay. So I guess in thinking about this, and this is pretty much what I was talking about Sunday, when I was saying that it just wasn't going to be enough. And just looking at all the information that we've had together on my own job, and the communities that you see this virus spreading rapidly, the counties in and around Atlanta, Cobb County, Fulton County, Henry County, all of those where you've seen it increase in the past few days. They were slow about moving. DeKalb County, I told you about the situation with DeKalb County, and it just over the weekend, the outbreaks just and I'm sure there's going to be more, because the mayor today just did finally put his foot down about people, because they were absolutely not listening and still gathering in large quantities. This is necessary for us to get a grip on it. I'm thankful that we've maintained that too, and I'm hoping that that's as far as we go. But if we didn't start this, it could become a whole lot worse with people coming in and people gathering and people traveling outside the area and bringing things back to us. So I'm glad we're getting the picture as far as what needs to be done. I was really
One of the things
concerned
we will
about that
be
Sunday.
working through with this is, and I've had a couple of conversations with Johnny Grant about it. Prior to this, Georgia College had already scheduled students coming back and moving their stuff out of the dorms by appointment at a specific time. And I told him that we would do everything we could to try not to curtail that, since they had already communicated with those students. So that's really the only thing that, and they're easily going to be in and out of town by these time limits.
Well, I'm glad we're doing this because they're from those areas that have high numbers, and we don't want them floating all around the city, going in and gathering in places where it would affect our own citizens that remain here after they're gone.
Yeah, the indoor dining and the shelter and residence piece in this are the two things that I am most adamant about. I even have some family members that are not happy with me about it, but it's not my wife, Dr. Leon.
Well, if we don't have any more questions, as Mr. Jordan said, Mr. Grimm said, we probably in the last week or so have texted and talked and gathered and tried to bring everything we could to the table to make sure we're responding like our citizens want us to. I'm sure most of y'all have gotten the same emails, or you've been on the Facebook page where people are just wanting us to hear them, and I'm trying to assure them we hear you. The whole council has your best interests at heart. So at this time, Mr. Jordan, do Mr. Bowe need to read the resolution in its entirety?
No, ma'am, by caption only.
Okay, all right.
Resolution authorizing the expansion of state of emergency to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the general public within the corporate limits of the city of Milledgeville and for other purposes.
Okay, you all have heard the resolution R-2003-17. Can I get a motion and a second on the
So moved.
resolution? It's been properly motion and second. Clerk-
Madam Mayor?
Question.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Yes. What would we decide on? Is 12 a.m. tonight or 12 p.m. tomorrow? What time did we just decide on?
Well, that's
That's up to y'all.
I'm saying, what did nobody said anything about it?
We did.
12 p.m.
I
is
think
good with
Miss-
me.
Yeah, she said
I'm
12.
saying,
Kinda
what you
keeping
want, 12 p.m.? I don't think it'll affect nothing.
Would we have to go back and change that time?
No, ma'am, we would just accept that as an amendment.
Okay.
That's, in this process, obviously, this resolution, we should accept that as an amendment. Unless somebody that made the motion and second objects to that.
Okay.
So we wouldn't have to vote on the amendment?
Well, I mean, technically, you probably are required to.
Wait.
You've raised that, Ms. Jones.
Love you, Ms. Jones.
I want to make a suggestion, and that is that we leave it at 12 a.m. and that way we don't have to reprint everything that's already been.
Or amend?
We don't have to change everything within the computer. We don't have to change everything that goes out on the website if it's already sitting there ready to go out, so on and so forth. We've already talked about that. There's going to be a leeway. There's going to be a lot of talk, a lot of information shared, and all that over the next 24, 48 hours, so on and so forth. So if it starts at 12
Leave it
midnight tonight,
Yeah.
as opposed to noon tomorrow, there should not be any difference.
Well, and
Curfew anyway.
Well,
right, and then
provide-
law enforcement can start enforcing. Mr. Griffith can pass it on to law enforcement that we wouldn't actually start enforcing until after 12 p.m.
Provided.
tomorrow.
But
We'll
you stick
enforce
by
it,
that
but
and
we
give
would
them
not
some
enforce
leeway.
a fine
A fine,
or
right,
cite
exactly.
someone. Yeah.
Okay?
I'm sorry, Sandy.
Okay.
I had that
Providing you give some leeway to especially.
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. As I've already mentioned, we're going to be doing everything to just simply warn people and not cite people, even on into the process.
Okay.
But after a certain deadline, then
Yeah.
Or certainly repeated offenses.
Yeah, because you're going to have some.
Yeah, you're gonna have some that are just gonna be hard-headed no matter what.
Yeah, what?
This is in case some of those folks from DeKalb County come down here.
Exactly, they probably will.
Right, y'all, watch
That
yourself.
concerns me now, I'm telling you.
We are going to cite that.
They need it.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Being a business owner, and because this is a situation that directly deals with the business community, I am going to elect to abstain from voting for this matter.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, so we've already received that motion and second. I'll have the clerk to call the roll on that, please.
Mr. Chambers,
I abstain.
Mr. Mullins,
Aye.
Mr. Reynolds,
Aye.
Ms. Shinholster,
Aye.
Ms. Walden,
Aye.
Dr. Lee.
Aye.
All right. So the resolution is approved. And let's see, do we have anything else that we need to discuss? Was that it, Mr. Griffith, that you had to bring forth?
I do not, Mayor. I just want to reassure council that we will follow your recommendations and preferences in enforcing this resolution in terms of the timing that when that will happen. And just reiterate to y'all, although I know I don't need to, but I will anyway, that if with this resolution or anything else going on right now, if something is brought to y'all's attention, then bring it to my attention so we can deal with it. So.
All right. That being said, I think we have had some good help at the helm for the last couple of days. Outside of everything else you do, Mr. Jordan, we thank you. Mr. Griffin,
Thank you and Mr. Griffin.
really been expedient about what we needed to do. And council, thank you all, because if we don't start somewhere, we got to lead by example. And so because you all are willing to go that extra mile, I think it's going to maybe kind of set the precedent for some other cities that they'll do the same thing likewise for their constituents. So if nothing else to discuss, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Meeting adjourned.
All right.